My poodle used to have explosive barking reactions to sounds around our home about 50 times a day, and it kept him stuck in this cycle of stress and vigilance, which further fueled a whole bunch of other behaviour challenges that he was having: stranger danger, anxiety in the urban environment, fear and aggression towards dogs, the list goes on. My name is Krishma. I'm a dog behaviour consultant. I specialise in working with sensitive, highly complex dogs. I have my own sensitive, highly complex dog who's taught me so much, but over the last decade I've worked with thousands, literally at this point, of sensitive dogs all around the world. In my community, my membership, we have a group of sensitive dog guardians, and one of the challenges that was consistently coming up for them was this challenge around sounds, the exact same challenge that I had with Hira all those years ago. And so last month I spent a lot of time creating this resource called Sound Sensitivity in the Home, and it's all about those guard dogs, those dogs who struggle to listen to noises around the home. How do we help them relax? So if you guys want to learn more, I want to see you over there. Today, I'm going to be talking about one piece of the puzzle, because this is complex. Sound issues, which is something I specialize in, are not ever going to be solved by one thing. You know, it's not as simple as give the dog a cookie after they hear a noise or tell them to go to their place when they react. That kind of cookie cutter approach very rarely works. And if it did, you wouldn't be here listening to me. I work with dogs who are a little bit more complex than that. And that's what my membership, my page, my YouTube, my webinar library, it's full of information on this. So if this is your first time here, I want you to go and look at some of my resources that address the larger foundational conversations around sound sensitivity. On my website, you can find a webinar called the Sound Sensitivity Masterclass, which is an excellent foundation. And I really just do urge you to go and look at that first. Today we're talking about a specific piece of the puzzle, which is social support for sound sensitive dogs. The problem we have with these dogs is that they are constantly vigilant to things that are going on around the home. And I'm talking specifically about sounds that predict social stimulus: voices, knocking, doorbells, dog barking, jingly tags, footsteps. This is such a problem for so many of my community members because their dogs are struggling to rest in the home. And if we don't have a solid, secure home base, these dogs are not going to be sleeping enough. Our dogs should be sleeping like 16 hours plus a day. And so if they're constantly being triggered and woken up and jolted into being reactive to noises, we're going to really struggle for them to recover. If we try to do training sessions, introduce them to new people, help them feel better around dogs or new environments or people, we come up against this wall, because at home they're rehearsing all of these emotional and behavioral patterns, and they are they're like pattern forming habits. If your dogs are waking up and woofing and rushing towards sounds in the home all day, good luck trying to do reactivity work with them out on the street. Good luck trying to introduce them to people in the home calmly. It all starts here. That's what I saw. And that's why I kind of created this resource, and why I'm jumping on today to talk about a piece of the puzzle that isn't really addressed very frequently. So before I dive into social support, I will just say all of this rests on a holistic foundation. I already mentioned the Sound Sensitivity Masterclass. It's 100% free, and it provides you with a little bit more of an understanding there. I have a framework called the HEAL framework, which is a 4-part framework that takes you through the things you need to build a foundation for your dog's healing. And I'm going to just remind everyone again, it all starts there. Sound sensitivities in general are predominantly tackled holistically, but we can actually add in other modalities of healing to help, and one of them, a key one, is social support. When we have a foundation set for sound sensitivity, we tend to see a reduction in the sounds that our dogs are reacting to. I had a client today message me saying that they used to have 50 reactions a day in the home, and that's down to 15 after they watched the masterclass and introduced some of the techniques that I recommended. Amazing. We've gotten down from 50 to 15. Yes. We're also likely seeing, if we've got that foundation laid, an improvement in their abilities to regulate. So they're getting less intensely reactive and they're coming down faster. So we can build this foundation, we see these improvements, and then a lot of sound sensitive dogs, the first thing that I'm taking clients through and talking to people about in the membership is how much these dogs need support. They need support from humans. And I think we're told frequently that we should give the dogs cookies to make the sounds, to positively condition the sounds in some way, or we should give them instructions on what to do, like down, quiet, etc. Sometimes that can be helpful, but what I actually think is really important is having a caregiver that's attuned to them, present, and there to support them when they hear noises, not by giving them cookies, but with social support. We're taught so frequently that we should train our dogs and use food and toys to condition different emotional responses, but we have to remember that our dogs are social species. So they interact with us on many different levels, not just on a sort of transactional, I tell you to sit and then give you a cookie level. So when I say social support, I'm talking about a few different things. Let's break it down. First thing is awareness. If you have a dog who's sensitive to noises or sensitive to anything around the home, if they are out in the backyard while you're on the other side of the property, or if they're by the door waiting and you're in the shower, unable to help them, they're much more likely to have disproportionate reactions, and they have no one there to help them, so they're likely to have this big rehearsal. So one thing I tell my clients is we need to have our attention on our sensitive dogs in the home. We can't really just let them roam around. We can't give them as much freedom as we might want to, because we need to be able to be there and present with them to help them if they need help and support. That's one of the first things that I was really changed with my poodle Hero. Was I was told that he should have choice and freedom, so I let him do whatever he wanted, but then he was having 50 reactions a day, and I realized actually it's not as simple as give them choice and freedom. That's good for them. Every animal is an individual, and he actually needed a lot more help than I was providing him at the beginning. So I think thinking about how frequently is your dog off in a different room having emotional responses without you there to help them, because what we need to teach these dogs is that they're safe. It's that they're safe, and it's that they don't need to yell at everything to keep us safe, to control the environment. We want them to be able to let go of that so that they can relax and just be a dog, and we've got this. We'll keep the house safe. If we're not on top of it, if we're not actually there with them and attuned to them, well, they're kind of right. They need to kind of tell us stuff because they have no idea about our emotional state. We have no idea about theirs. So awareness is the first thing here. And this is really challenging for a lot of us, especially if we work from home, if we're busy, if you're like me, you have neurodivergences, which mean that I can get very distracted or very focused. It's hard to constantly have one tab open in the back of my head about my dog. And it's not really as fun as training with cookies, but it is one of the most important things that you can do. So I want you guys to think about this awareness that you have over your dog, your sensitive dog, especially in the home. Let's just start in the home. Where are they located? Are they constantly by the door? Are they out in the yard unattended? How can I set up the situation to be able to be connected with them at all times? And when I can't focus on them, what am I going to do? When I'm in a meeting and I need to talk to my boss and I can't go and help them, what am I going to do? Am I going to give them to another caregiver? Am I going to confine them and teach them the skill of confinement so that they can be in a little crate or be on a leash next to me? What am I have to prepare for this, basically? So that's the first piece. Once you have an awareness of them, we can start being in conversation with them around noises. If you've ever been in a webinar of mine or in one of my, in a session with me, you will likely hear me talking to my dogs about sounds that are going on around the home. So if there was a creak of the house and my dogs raise their head, I tend to kind of acknowledge them and talk to them about what's going on. So if they flick their ear up, I go, yeah, I heard that. That's a sound outside. It's a thump outside. And I start to develop a dialogue with the dog around sounds we consistently hear. I start to label them. Yeah, that's a tree outside. Yep, that's the neighbor. That's a car. I jump in with them to have these conversations, not when they are melting down. When they're melting down, we need to give them other forms of support, and I can talk about that. I talk about that a lot in the resource that I've made in the sound sensitivity course, so please go and look at that there. But when we have appropriate foundations laid, when we have good management in place, when we have addressed the foundations, the heel foundations, we tend to see that they can listen to more noises without completely exploding. And that kind of opens the door a little bit for us to start having these conversations with them. When applied consistently, we can build a kind of rich dialect that we can support and communicate with them about the environment around them. And the messaging here, through this attunement, awareness, and communication that's consistent, is that we're telling the dogs, we've got this under control. We don't need you to yell about it. I noticed that you noticed that. Sometimes my dogs are listening to a noise and I can see they're not sure whether it's safe or not. And when I was first growing up as a dog trainer, the way I was taught to tell a dog that things are okay was by feeding them or offering them toys. And my poodle would be listening to a voice of a man outside and he'd be scared. And then I'd go, do you want a cookie? And he'd look at me like, are you joking? There's a bear outside roaring and you're trying to offer me a snack. And I feel like for many dogs, especially when they're very fearful or very frustrated, when we offer them toys and food in these moments, it can kind of be a lack of attunement. It can feel a bit like, do you even understand me, bro? I don't know. Let me know if you've ever experienced anything like that, where you've offered your dog a cookie and they've kind of communicated to you that that was not what they needed and you got it wrong. This social support looks like, how do we safety signal to our dogs with a way that isn't contrived and doesn't feel a bit like kind of clunky? And usually we have already developed a communication system with them about this. What do you do with your dog when you feel safe and comfortable? Do you go, good job, I love you, my baby? Do you make a joke with them? Do you go, you're a little silly stinky? What do you do with them that indicates to them that they're safe and there's nothing to worry about? Do that. When I'm listening to a sound with my dogs and they're a little bit unsure, maybe our youngest, she's an adolescent border collie, maybe she kind of goes, I'm not sure about that. What I usually do is I go, oh, it's okay, my good girl, what a good job. Maybe I like, oh, no reason to be worried, it's all good. I relax my body. Maybe I touch her because she likes to be touched, that helps her. And if I need to lighten up the mood a little bit, I might try one of our jokes that we have together where I go, you're a little tootie, you're a little stinky, or something like that, and sing a little song, something like that. The idea here is, what social signals can we use to help our dogs feel safer in these moments when they're listening to these noises? And some people listen to this and they go, oh my God, my dog is explosively reactive, or you could never do this. Then you're going back to the foundations. Watch the Sound Sensitivity Masterclass. It's free. And it will give you an idea of what that looks like. But once we've built that foundation, upon it, we can start building secure attachment, attunement, connection, and co-regulation. Whoa, what a lot of words that was, but that's it. Like, we're looking to be aware of our dogs, where they are, how they're feeling, and what's going on in their environment, so that we can acknowledge when they notice things, or even when they don't even have a reaction. Maybe they're just listening to a noise, but their head is down and they're not even raising their head. Good job, very nice. Tell them, give them support, give them feedback, and be consistent. We can label sounds and we can safety signal. This is not the full picture, right? There are other things you need to know. That's why I've made a whole 1-hour resource on it in my membership. If you want to join, you can comment TB member. That stands for Transform Behavior. TB member, one word. Or you can just go to the link in my bio. You can find the membership. The first 2 weeks are completely free. So you can go and watch this resource for free and then unsubscribe yourself, and you don't have to pay me a single penny. Because there are other pieces in there. For example, I talk more about what do we do when there are overwhelming sounds? How do we support our dogs when they're having full-blown reactions? What do we do about dogs who actually aren't afraid? They like yelling at things. And they're a breed type maybe for whom this is much more likely. And then what games can we play to reduce sensitivity to noises once we've done these foundational pieces? That is what I dive into in the resource in the membership. So go and check it out. It's really excellent, really excellent. I'm pretty excited about it. And hopefully today I've given you some ideas about social support for sound sensitive dogs and ways that you can help them that don't involve food, that don't involve toys, that involve attunement and presence and social interaction. Someone says, is there a different treatment if my dog is only reacting to sounds when I'm home and not when I'm not home? Oh, friend, you absolutely need to have a look into this kind of stuff, because if your dog is only reacting to noises when you're there, that likely usually means that there's something to do with you, your relationship, your learning history, that makes the dog think they need to bark at things. And what I'm talking about here in my resource, in the membership, and today in this live, is this idea that our dogs we should be clearly communicating with our dogs that they don't need to be guard dogs. They don't need to monitor the environment to keep them safe. A lot of the time, because of genetics, the environments that we live in, and sometimes training practices, because of a combination of different things, these dogs often are primed to be seriously reactive in the home. Like I said, for my poodle, 50 times a day was a good day. You know, and I have a client now, they've gone down from 50 to 15. 15 is still quite a lot of reactions to be having in a day. I'm going to get that down to 0, you know, or 1. But if these dogs if it's their responsibility to control the environment and keep everyone safe, it's going to be really hard for them to really truly heal, especially if they have issues with fear, issues with frustration and impulsivity, or issues that are social related. You know, if they struggle to make friends, if they are fearful and grumpy or reactive or aggressive to people, we need to start here. It feels like you're not getting to the root of the problem, but this is part of the problem. It's right at the core. So we really do have to dive in. Let me see if anyone else has got any questions. Appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Shelley says, talking to my dogs helps me regulate myself when I'm hearing noises. Totally. Because if you have a super reactive dog, now you're probably sound sensitive too, which is not helpful for anyone. All right, folks, I'm going to finish up here. Thanks for joining, everyone. And if you want to learn more, you can just comment, like I said, TB member, and I'll send you a link to join the membership. You could also just go to transformbehavior.com, where we have a page about the membership, a video which tours the membership. So you can just have a little look. And if not, the free webinar library on our website has the sound sensitivity masterclass, which is 100% free. Someone says, how hard is it to train people? Love, that's my whole job. My whole job is to train people, because when we change our behavior, then their behavior can change. We are